Good evening, Simon, if you're still here. Does anyone know what I'm supposed to be talking about today? Because I don't. I most certainly do not have a clue in the world. I do know though that unless I am busy, I'll be very busy on Wednesday. So unless I'm busy, I'm going to be busy anyway. Because of this honestly pathetic country on the screen. No, jokes aside. The fact that this country on your screen right now can be in a technically 50-50 race between a useless DEI hire and someone with a proven track record of actually taking their country places is an indictment on their country, is an indictment on how their media controls so much of what the general populace think. How much that academia likes to brainwash all the people in universities. But here we are. We're in a situation where Donald Trump has had all of the possible things thrown at him to stop him from winning the election, and he's still really on a good track to do exactly that. So last night I dropped my my final predictions for the Electoral College, but I included toss-ups. Now, the reason I included toss-ups was because I don't want to be I'm not actually as confident as some of you might think with some of my rhetoric, because it's an inevitability that the Democrat Party are the largest political machine in the world, and they're not going to go down without a fight, and they'll go to any lengths necessary to try and prevent Trump from becoming president. So with that in mind, I have outlined 5 states which I think are toss-ups. They could go either way, be that through legitimate means or nefarious means. So most people, when they look at toss-ups, and this is what the aggregators will say and all of that, they'll say Georgia is a toss-up state, Arizona is a toss-up state, and in some cases, North Carolina is a toss-up state. It's definitely regarded as a battleground state. I'm not buying into that. I think Arizona is locked in. I think Georgia is locked in. I think North Carolina is locked in. He's never polled any better than he ever has. I mean, let me rephrase that. He's never polled as well as he is right now in North Carolina, and he's never lost North Carolina. Georgia, he's polling on a par with 2016. I don't see Harris beating Georgia unless she can really get that black vote turning around, because right now it's not really working out on her. They're not that enthusiastic about her. Arizona, again, polling better than ever. And there are certain conservative commentators in the region which have been working overtime to get to capture that vote of young people in particular, and overall just try and flip the state. It's a border state. He won it in 2016, and I think all of the momentum's there for Arizona to go to Trump, and plus he's leading in the polls there by over 2%. So when Trump has a lead of 2%, he doesn't tend to drop those states. Now, say what you will about polling, but it gives you an idea, a rough idea, which is why I've got New Hampshire. New Hampshire up there as a toss-up state. Now, New Hampshire, for the most part, people think, oh, that's a sure thing for Democrats. But something that I've come to learn is that New Hampshire is a bit of a funny state, as in when it swings a lot. It overcompensates one way or the other. So, for example, it was only really retained by the Democrats by a very tiny margin in 2016, and that was quite a dramatic shift back towards the Republicans. Now, in 2020, it did the exact opposite and ended up being won by the Democrats by a ridiculous amount, whereas all the states that Trump won in 2016 that he lost in 2020, they weren't dramatic shifts. They were a point or two either way. So New Hampshire tends to overcompensate, and it's also only within 5 points there. So with New Hampshire, there's a rough probability that he manages to flip it. It's only 4 electoral college votes, but hey, it would be bragging rights. And it's the sort of situation where you just have to look at the general trend of things, what the general rhetoric is, where the momentum's at. And right now, if any candidate has the momentum to take New Hampshire, it will be Donald Trump. With that in mind, when I release my final predictions, probably on Tuesday, where I'm outlining what I think each state will do, without the toss-ups, New Hampshire will probably lean blue. But hey, I might change my mind between now and then. But the other four are really, I mean, up until the last few days, Trump has led in all 4 of them. However, that's kind of shifting with a bunch of quite Kamala Harris-friendly polls being dropped. For example, a +6 in Wisconsin, whereas all the other recent polls have either been a +1 for Harris or a +1 for Trump or a tied. So it's kind of a bit of a rogue poll thrown out there to try and, I don't know, make them feel like they're winning. And I think out of the 4, I'm most confident about Wisconsin, funny enough. And the reason I'm most confident about Wisconsin is because how bad the polling is there historically, at least in the last 2 presidential elections. In particular, how much they understate Trump. Now, whether or not that's going to be the same story this time, who knows? But of the 4, I feel like Wisconsin's the one that has the most likelihood Trump just comes out and wins it by a point or 2. Second to that, I'd probably have to say Pennsylvania is a good shout. However, you never know with Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin. Nevada, Trump's never won. But Nevada, he is leading the polls there, and that's something that he hadn't done previously. And it's also very close to the border. And I think the early voting and all that sort of stuff is looking very good for the Republicans. So I'm leaving that up there as a toss-up, whether or not it goes blue in my final, blue or red in my final prediction. Well, we shall see. But look out for that on Tuesday. I'll be doing that. But if you do want to keep up to date with things like these polling updates, these predictions and so forth, you can go over to my Patreon. It is free for most of the stuff there. It just helps. It helps you get notified as well when I do drop these things, and it keeps it all in one place. Whereas previously it's a little bit difficult to go back and cross-reference things. So, for example, you can easily go to collections, and then you've got absolutely everything to do with the 2024 election right here. All of the different changes that we've been able to see. And so, yeah, I've got that there, as well as, of course, New Zealand political party polling, because who doesn't like to have a look at this? It's interesting, comparing political polling for the US and New Zealand. I actually have to say I have a lot of respect for how accurate polling in New Zealand is. I mean, if we actually think about it, we can sit here and say, oh, the polls are nonsense, all we like. But, I mean, when we actually look at election results versus polling, we're typically quite close. So, I mean, you're not going to find me complaining about our polling. Sure, never take it as 100%, but we're pretty darn accurate, isn't it? The polls told us who was going to win the election, and that's exactly what happened. So I think we've got far less partisanship in our polling here. Over there, it's a bit more of a propaganda minefield. But of course, if you don't want to just be a member, a free member, you can support me through a monthly membership, only $5, with a 7-day free trial, of course, at the moment, to access all of the videos I upload early and ad-free, as well as other things that I'll do down the line. But I do like to keep as much of the stuff as free as possible. So, of course, this just dropped at 5 p.m., but if you had been a member, you could have watched it 21 hours ago. But that's no pressure. That's just there if you want extra perks. Now, how many have we got? 29 viewers. That's great to see. I'll quickly go have a look at TikTok chat because someone actually has commented. Just quickly open this up. Okay, we've got a whole little bloody conversation going on here. The discusser says Trump will win, full stop, bottom line. Look, I think Trump is the favourite to win. And that's not something you could have said in the past 2 elections. But full stop, bottom line is probably a little bit too confident for my liking. I want to try to take a leaf out of the book of Charlie Kirk. He's been working extremely hard for years to try and ensure that Trump wins this election, and working himself to the bone. But not even he refuses to have such confidence. Fair Player asks, do you think Trump will pardon Lil Durk? Who knows who Trump will pardon? Trump pardons very interesting individuals, I'll tell you that much. Quick. Fair Player also says, it pains me when we find Kiwis commentating foreign politics. It's never that good. Well, that's a fascinating point. Are you saying that Kiwis commentating on foreign politics are just generally incapable of doing so, either objectively or constructively, or in a manner that's worth your while, perhaps? Although I do my darndest to try and inform myself where necessary. And also don't go outside of topics and areas where I feel like I'm able to provide something of value. And he goes on to say, wouldn't you be better off scrutinizing local politics where you can affect meaningful change? Well, that's the thing. I do that. I do exactly that all the time. However, I don't think it can be understated how important this election is for the entire world. I mean, let's look at it as objectively as possible. What was the state of the global world, global politics, between 2017 and 2021? What was the state of Israel versus Hamas at that point? What was the situation between Russia and Ukraine at that point? What was the relationship like between the US and North Korea? What we had the US under Trump actively working for peace in the Middle East and getting it to the most peaceful place it's been in like 50 years, if not more. You had Trump actively working to improve relations between Russia, saying, hey, look, we won't tolerate this sort of action. We won't tolerate this sort of behavior, this sort of bullying. And if you do, you will regret it. Russia didn't do anything. The same approach, a very, very hard-handed approach with North Korea, saying, try me. North Korea ended up becoming not really a threat at all. Even though when when Obama left office, he said North Korea was arguably the US's largest military threat. That definitely wasn't the case when Trump left office. Then as soon as Trump leaves office, North Korea starts playing up. Russia starts playing up. I mean, the same for Israel and Hamas. Israel and Hamas, along with the other Arab nations in the region, they were arguably at the best place ever in the Trump years, and now they're in all-out war. I mean, it's war between Iran, Lebanon, Hamas, Israel. It's a shambles. I mean, technically even the Houthis are in there. It's an absolute mess, the state that we're in. And that can all be said that can all be really attributed to a weak US government since 2021. Now, Joel Terry says, I smell a landslide, according to RFK Jr. Well, you know what? By recent electoral standards, perhaps it will be. I mean, look, I'm going to give us a hypothetical here of what could happen. Now, I don't think I'll put this as a prediction officially, but on the off, there's a really off chance that this happens. Trump wins Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, New Hampshire, Virginia, and Minnesota. Perhaps even New Mexico. That would be probably as much of a landslide as he could possibly get. And maybe Maine. But apparently there's one section of Maine. Maybe like most of Maine, maybe one part of Maine stays blue. So I think that would be the most seats he could possibly get if everything went his way. But I mean, we're still looking at, I think a safe bet would be 312 Trump. That would be a safe bet in terms of, a convincing victory. You could maybe push that to 316 with New Hampshire. But I think anywhere between, I think Trump in a realistic sense, based on all the momentum, based on polling, is projected to win between 280 something seats and 302, 303. Basically a repeat of 2016. That's the safest kind of bet that you could make. Joel Terry says, Trump stops business with countries that cause mischief, sanctions, tariffs. It worked exactly, and it did work. And for all the scaremongering about what tariffs would mean for the US economy, I mean, what did it mean for the US economy between 2017 and 2021? I don't see the US economy getting worse in that period, did you? I mean, we think about it this way, if especially the larger organizations, if they are getting affected by tariffs, then they will most likely, unless they've just got absolutely no interest in the US market anymore, which is a ludicrous idea, they will change how they operate to be more based in the US, or in a way that benefits the US economically. Ideally, let's say he's doing tariffs in some South American country where some large automotive company is, using low wage labor to get what they want done. They will then find that it's cheaper to just create those same manufacturing plants in the US and then employ US citizens. It's that simple. It's not always a guarantee, but to suggest that there is no benefit to tariffs, that the tariffs that Trump's proposing will be a net negative and there's no other way about it, is nonsense. It's just scaremongering. And on that, it's surprising that John Key didn't even make that point when he endorsed Trump. So it's whatever. Yeah, I did notice that, what's his name? Arnold Schwarzenegger decided that he would endorse Kamala Harris. And I found this rather interesting. Actually, and I do want to read it because he makes, it's quite lengthy actually. Oh yeah, it's quite lengthy, but I'm not sure I actually agree with much of his logic. Especially, yeah, I mean, you'll see for yourself. But he says, I don't really do endorsements. I'm not shy about sharing my views, but I hate politics and I don't trust most politicians. I also understand that people want to hear from me because I'm not just a celebrity, I'm a former Republican governor. My time as governor taught me to love policy and ignore politics. I'm proud of the work I did to help clean up our air, create jobs, balance the budget, make the biggest infrastructure investment in state history, and take power from the politicians to give it back to the people when it comes to our redistricting process and our primaries in California. That's policy. It requires working with the other side, not insulting them to win your next election. And I know it isn't sexy to most people, but I love it when I can help make people's lives better with policies like I still do through my institute at USC, where we fight for clean air and stripping the power from the politicians who rig the system against the people. Now, I do note there that he says it requires working with the other side, not insulting them to win your next election. Now, based on everything else he says, I've got the feeling that that's directed at both sides in this case, because if it wasn't directed at both sides, then that would be absolutely nonsensical and you'd be out of touch with reality. Because if it was just directed at Trump, who, as we know, has a habit of just insulting people, that's just the way he goes, that would be fair. But it also needs to be said that the whole Kamala Harris campaign is about insulting and telling the most egregious lies about Donald Trump. That's their entire campaign. It's, he's a fascist this, he's a Nazi that, he's going to ruin your life, this, everything under the sun that they could paint him with. He's a convicted felon because of bullshit, because of a bullshit conviction, all of this sort of stuff. But yeah, and quickly, Joel Terry says, I could have this wrong, but the rivalry was intensified with the exit of Trump running The Apprentice and Schwarzenegger not achieving terrific ratings, with Trump subsequently mocked him for. Hey, perhaps. that could be, that could have something to do with it. Though, I don't know. I don't know if Arnold's that petty, but you never know. Let me be honest. I don't like either party right now. My Republicans have forgotten the beauty of the free market, driven up deficits, and rejected election results. Now, my Republicans have forgotten the beauty of the free market. I think there's an element of fairness to that. Though I'd say that a Trump presidency is probably more in alignment with remembering the importance of the free market than, let's say, maybe a Bush era Republican. I don't know enough about the Bush era, to be fair, but I know he's a warmongering prick, so we'll leave it at that. But driven up deficits, I mean, technically that was true, but they've gone up under basically every president in decades. So what do you want? And rejected election results. I mean, they contested election results because there was clear issues with the election results, and you not wanting to accept that there was issues with the election results doesn't mean that Trump is a bad candidate. That's just how I'll put that. Democrats aren't any better at dealing with deficits, and I worry about their local policies hurting our cities with increased crime. Exactly. He's fair there. It is probably not a surprise that I hate politics more than ever, which, if you're a normal person who isn't addicted to this crap, you probably understand. You probably understand. I want to tune out, but I can't, because rejecting the results of an election is as un-American as it gets. To someone like me who talks to people all over the world and still knows America is the shining city on a hill, calling America is a trash can for the world is so unpatriotic. It makes me furious. And I will always be an American before I am a Republican. That's why this week I am voting for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Now, I find it extremely hard that of everything he's said, those were the reasons why he's voting for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. If anything, I think he's looking for an excuse to vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, because really all he's got is the Republican Party as a whole maybe isn't necessarily focused on the free markets to the same extent that they probably should be. And Donald Trump was a bit pissed off about the 2020 election result. That's about it. How does that justify voting for the antithesis of the Republican Party? I mean, you're definitely not going to get protections of the free market and a return to free market capitalism under Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, are you? I mean, you're kidding yourself if you think that's going to happen. You're definitely not going to get the end of or what's it? You're definitely not going to get the end of insulting political rivals under Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. I mean, Kamala Harris's whole party has just spent the last 9 years on a witch hunt trying to take down their political rival, simply because he's their political rival, and he's doing a fantastic job at it. I mean, it's nonsensical logic. Much of his criticisms of Trump apply to the other side. And the largest criticism of Trump you could make with respect to the 2020 election is honestly nothing compared to what the Democrat Party have spent the last 9 years doing, and what, frankly, they've just spent the last 2 or 3 years doing, which is using absolutely everything in their arsenal to try and take him down for good. So I don't know what he's on, to be honest. I really don't know what he's on. Joel Terry asks, do you follow Shoe on Head, I'm presuming, and have you seen her take on the Democrat campaign, creating spaces for white men? I do not follow them. Haven't even heard of that part of the Democrat campaign, though. If that would be a reason not to vote for them, creating spaces for white men makes me want to. Hey, I'll create my own space for white men. It's called the Republican Party. Thank you very much. It's called the Republican Party. I'll definitely try and give that a watch later, Joe. Actually, stuff it. Let's have a look at how long this bad boy is. Let's see if that actually... yeah, we'll definitely give this some watch. Just give me a sec. I think that'll do for Arnold though. We get the gist. Speaking of landslide victories, I don't know if RFK quite had this in mind. If women didn't vote, everything would be better. I mean, but women do vote, bro. It is interesting to see how people vote by demographics in it. I mean, we could make the same logic if like, African Americans didn't vote. Elections would be different. At the end of the day, we all have the right to vote. Quickly. So, yeah, we'll move on to this. Simply because Joel recommended it. The man problem. Why are men moving right? Great idea. Well, let's get rid of the NZ Herald up there. We don't need them. Actually... Before we do this, I'll quickly check the TikTok chat because I have been ignoring them. If he's still here, of course, that's wild. Says, Eric, what's up, brother? I'm all good, bro. How's your day going? Also, the discusser was in here defending me a little bit against Fair Player, who was a bit confused as to why New Zealander is invested in US politics so much. And, well, I think I did a fair job of explaining why. And it's because of the state of the world. So much of it impacts us. I mean, we look at what is happening in Russia, Ukraine, what's happening in the Middle East. That's impacting us economically. That's impacting the cost of living. That's impacting gas in particular, especially a couple of years ago when Russia first went in. So, in respect to that, the discusser says he has fair conversations rather than angry victim, rather than the angry victim people. Hey, I'll take that. He also says, how could you support someone that keeps prisoners in jail longer for cheap labour for the state of California? Exactly. That's what I find interesting. People like to go over and like, oh, look at Kamala Harris's, look at her achievements. You know, prior to going into Congress and whatever. Did she go to Congress? I don't even know. But prior to going into politics at the federal level, look at everything she did. It's like, okay, now are we going to talk about what she actually did, or just the very, very baseline level? She was district attorney of San Francisco, and she was attorney general of California, or whatever. I mean, are we going to actually look at the reality of what she did, which was, in this case, kept prisoners in jail longer, black prisoners, mind you, for cheap labour? Which is a little bit interesting, because I think Winston Peters for New Zealand First recently just outlined or suggested that we work on having all prisoners work, or much more prisoners work, And if some people are like, oh, that you can't, that's like slave labor, you can't force people to work. People don't understand that that's already happening in prison. And it's actually very, very useful. I think it's one of the best elements of it. It gives you something to work towards, gives you something to do. So a quick story on that. When you're in prison, if you have the opportunity to go do either a on-site job or an out-of-site job, you will take that with both hands unless you're a lazy loser. And you don't get a lot for it. You get like 40 cents an hour at best, because you're not entitled to it. And all of the work you're doing is generally there to support just the how the place is working. So like I had many. I painted the interior and exterior of buildings there. I was a glorified janitor, a very good one at that. I polished floors, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. All of this stuff was really useful at building work ethic, getting new skills, and keeping myself occupied. On top of that, I became a qualified barista, and I served coffee on a day-to-day basis. I started a cafe in Hawke's Bay, the prison that is, and was serving that and running that for close to 2 years. So that was me. That was my baby. I trained several people to do it as well. And outside of that, I even got the opportunity from there to go work outside and go. I ended up doing refurb on Housing New Zealand houses that needed work done. So I did plastering for that, painting for that, a range of different things. So you actually get the opportunities to do a lot through emphasizing work programs for prisoners. However, when you're keeping them in there longer just so they can do it, that's when it becomes a problem. So yeah, anyway, let's have a quick look at the chat and then we'll get into it. Ken Brown says 36 cents an hour. Yep, pretty much, bro. Pretty much. Not even adjusted for inflation. How horrible. Yeah, and the discusser says what you're saying is all good, but imagine being left in longer than required for your 40 cents an hour. Exactly. It's never ideal to be left in longer simply for that. Anyways, let's see what this chick has to say.
Happy 1-year anniversary to my male loneliness epidemic video. I'm happy to announce that since that video uploaded, the discourse has greatly improved. People all around the world are taking men's issues more seriously, and the gender war has finally come to an end. Just kidding, everything has gotten worse and nobody has learned anything. From the witches on The View cackling about how men are useless.
Do we need men? Men are useless.
To women online saying they'd rather be stranded in the woods with a bear than a man.
Would you rather be stuck in a forest with a man or a bear?
The bear. Bear. It seems that things have gotten more toxic than ever, and the gender divide couldn't be any wider, especially politically.
In 2008, 58% of young people leaned Democratic. 2012, 53%. And in the last 2 major election years, that percentage held steady at 55%. But in 2023, that number dipped below 50% for the first time since 2005.
Oosh.
And you'll notice right here, they've started to lean more Republican. And that's partly because of one specific group, young men.
I noticed the woman was also increasing.
Okay, I know I said I was going to focus on the gender war and not talk about politics for a while. However, I found a loophole. Politics is talking about gender war. With this election being hailed by the media as the man versus woman election, according to any and all data coming out recently, men all around the world have shifted more right, and women have shifted more left. But women going more left was not the focus of this month's outrage. The outrage, of course, was about men. That's right, we got our yearly, oh no, what is happening to men? Why are they moving to the right freak out? But unlike last year, this freak out isn't solely happening on the internet, no. It's also happening in Washington, D.C.
There are only 46 days until Election Day, and the Harris-Walz campaign is struggling to appeal to a group of voters that could determine the outcome of the election, and that is men.
The Harris campaign is making an aggressive last-minute effort to win over younger male voters.
Am I really gonna make a video criticizing the Democrat Party days before the election? Of course I am. Now, before you celebrate or grab your pitchforks, this is not a pro-Trump video. This is a do better video. This is a mommy's not mad, she's disappointed video. Actually, I lied. Mommy's pretty mad. In this video, I am going to be addressing the Democrats' so-called man
I need to find me
problem,
one of these.
the recent discourse about men moving right, the last-minute pandering the Democratic Party is doing to get them back, what they could be doing instead, and of course, going over some terrible opinions. Not my opinions. I have never had a bad opinion in my life. Except that one opinion. We don't talk about that one opinion. In a world where it seems like everything men do and like is toxic, from eating meat to working out to even having a beard. Oh wait, that reminds me. Before we get into this video, let's quickly give a shout out to today's video sponsor, Henson Shaving. If you've used a multi-blade razor, you're probably
Henson, I need a bit of
familiar
work.
with
It's
this
Movember
story.
now.
Irritation, razor burns, and maybe even ingrown hair. Studies show 2/3 of men experience some form of irritation after shaving. It's something they just
Shouldn't go
expect
clean.
at this point.
Simple.
They deal with overpriced blades, irritated skin, and think that's just the way it has to be. Until now. Henson Shaving is on a mission to improve shaving with real innovation and a focus on your skin's health. Their razors are made with solid aluminum, making them not only durable, but environmentally friendly too. There's no plastic involved at all, even in the packaging. And the blades are fully recyclable.
I'm sorry, but I see that, and it gives me, like, chick blade vibes. You know, anyone else? It gives me chick blade vibes. Just saying. I don't know if I want to be caught dead holding that.
What really sets Henson apart is their
Okay, that's a bit better. We'll take those.
engineering, with their Henson AL-13 safety razor being manufactured in an aerospace machine shop that built parts for the International Space Station. This precision allows
And the only reason this ad is up is because it's November. If it wasn't, I'd just skip straight past.
the blade to extend just 1/1000th of an inch beyond the shave plane, less than the thickness of a human hair. The razor prevents any bouncing or skipping, resulting in an irritation-free shave every time. Henson even partnered with a medical imaging startup, and results indicated that the Henson AL-13 razor significantly reduces razor burn in comparison to conventional multi-blade razors. Since I switched to using Henson as my go-to razor brand,
Oh
my
no,
shaves
it's a
have been more
dude.
silky and smoother than ever. No more burns or cuts, just a close shave that feels amazing. In other words, no more leg beard. The best part is, once you invest in a Henson razor, it's a lifetime purchase. The only thing you need to repurchase are the blades, which only cost 10 cents each. 10 cents. So once you own a Henson razor, you'll only be spending $3 to $5 a year on blades, compared to the ongoing cost of buying those expensive plastic cartridges. Henson store offers a variety of colors, so you can pick the razor that best fits your style. So head over to Henson.
I haven't had a traditional razor in years, I gotta say.
Discount shoe at checkout to get 100 blades for free with your purchase of a Henson razor. Your skin and your environment will thank you. Big thank you to Henson for sponsoring this video, and thank you for not skipping the ad.
You're
Skip
welcome.
the ad, right? And now, let's get back to the video. If you are a regular viewer to the Shoe on Head
Ish.
channel, first of all, I'm sorry. But also, you know by now, I have been documenting the internet and society in general's growing and widely accepted hatred of men. This has been happening for a very long time. And if you dare spoke up about it, you were called an incel or a pick-me, depending on your gender. But seemingly, almost out of nowhere, there has been a change of heart.
You know, I think
Spitting
men are in
bars.
crisis, actually, in this country. I think that plays out different ways, but I think we need to have a real conversation about that.
Wow, that's interesting. Mainstream media talking about this? I wonder why they care so much now. Democrats fear Harris losing too many male voters to Trump. Oh. Signs have been mounting that, for the first time in recent decades, Democrats may lose majority support.
Exactly,
from young
Joe, and
men
no one
in
beats your
2024.
stash,
The
bro.
risk to Democrats is that this is not just a one-time fluke, but an indication of growing trouble with men in coming elections. Democrats can celebrate the support they are getting from young women, but they also need to take the disaffection of young men seriously, engage them directly, and respond to the visions of manhood and masculinity that Donald Trump and JD Vance are offering. Alright, Kamala, you got 2 weeks to reverse anti-male propaganda and resentment fueled by our government, media, and institutions. How you gonna do it? Harris campaign creating space for white dudes. Oh, that's a great idea. I mean, a little too late, but I'm glad you're finally doing to be honest about role in history. Oh. It's always a space for white men to talk about how much they suck.
What made you start this group, White Dudes for Harris?
Oh, my
and
goodness.
I suspect some of it has to do with the polling.
Yeah, for far too long, the left has essentially ceded white men to the MAGA right. There's large parts of the left who have gone out of their way to alienate white men over the last couple of years. And that's understandable in many ways. We decided that we wanted to create space for white men to be a part of electing Vice President Harris.
You want to know why he looks like that? We'll quickly go back to his face. You want to know why he looks like this? I don't know why I keep looking at this other screen because the camera's here. You know why he looks like this? It's because he's got a bloody pig in his asshole. Let's be real here. He's not the dominant one in his relationship. We'll tell you that right now. In fact, I saw a guy who's far more fruity than him on X yesterday, backing Trump all the way. I have to respect it. But this guy is a... you wouldn't catch me dead having a drink with that bloke, I tell you.
Electing Vice President Harris.
At the top of the call, White Dudes for Harris organizer Ross Morales Roquito said he wanted to address what he called the elephant in the room, criticism surrounding an event organized for white men given the country's history of racism. A lot of people felt uncomfortable about the call, he said. Throughout American history, when white men organized, it was often with pointy hats on. They can't even have their gay little Zoom call where they circle jerk about hating themselves without their own movement going, yikes! A bunch of white males in one space? Seems kind of like the KKK. Black people can have their little groups and that's fine, but if a bunch of white people get together, well, that's just called BreadTube. Never mind. White Dudes for Harris. I mean, she's doing pretty bad with Latinos, too. What's next? Hombres con Harris? Oh. So basically, men are leaving the Democratic Party in droves.
Oh,
It's
she's
not looking
desperate.
too good for the Democrats. So it wasn't long until everyone's favorite discourse hit Twitter again. If Kamala loses, which is very possible, there needs to be a real discussion about how Democrats speak to and reach young men. If Kamala loses. If she wins, there doesn't have to be discussion. We shouldn't change anything. Clearly, we're doing everything right. To be clear, I'm not saying we need to worry about women less or change any positions. I'm saying the polling around young men is concerning, and if it turns out to be true, we need to have a discussion about how condescending we are coming off to a huge part of the electorate. To be clear, I'm not saying we have to change anything, I'm just wondering why men aren't voting for us. What? I am gonna regret posting this so hard. And oh boy did he, the replies were insane, to say the least. I must admit, I cringed reading most of this. I feel that one thing you didn't address is the systemic entitlement bestowed upon white men in the US. That sense of entitlement, that privilege they felt for eternity, is eroding.
I swear she's just spitting bars, isn't she? Just spitting bars. I mean, I hope that music's not copyrighted, but hey, spitting bars. I can't blame her.
Systemic entitlement they have felt for eternity? They're like 22 years old. The f*** do you mean eternity? Who is this like 200-year-old man? So young men are snowflakes with hurt fifis because they're not the center of attention anymore. Got it. So are they poor little snowflakes, boo-hoo, or are they scary fascists that are gonna turn America into the Handmaid's Tale? Because they can't be both. You either care about the future or you don't. You cannot simultaneously hand.
Hey, Danny. I don't even want to say it. Daniki Uchicha. Or Chiha. Kia ora, bruv. How you going, bro? Having a good day? We're just reacting to a chick spitting bars. She's doing a great job.
Wave away, men moving to fascism, but also fearmonger about it. Hi, man here. Maybe men just need to stop being absolute pieces of dog shit. It seems like the easiest thing to do, right? I don't feel alienated or uncomfortable with democratic messaging because I'm not a complete wannabe fascist cheese dick incel loser who thinks he's the good guy. Reddit and its consequences have been a disaster for the male race. They just need to get off their asses, stop playing video games, and get real jobs.
No, I will play my... What is it now? Far too many hours of Black Ops 6.
First of all, what real jobs? These guys are coming out of college with useless diplomas and there are no jobs. Also, what an out-of-touch boomer-ass take. Get off your ass and stop playing those video games from the generation who watches TV 24/7. I don't want to hear it. Tell them to get therapy. Tell them whatever you told or gave to women in the 1950s. They made this bed, let them sleep alone in it. or be f***ing better men. Any other group of people and it's, oh, boo-hoo, poor baby, let me rewire all of society so your feelings aren't hurt. And then with men, it's get therapy. Be f***ing better. While there is truth in messaging needs to be better from Democrats as a whole, I reject that telling young men they need to be better is the problem. They are trash in their nature, and if they can't do the work to not be toxic waste of seed, that's on them. Vote for my team, by the way. We may not want to hear it, but this is what the data reflects. There is a massive loneliness epidemic in this country which is disproportionately affecting men. Instead of calling them incels or mocking them, we should be willing to hear out their concerns. Wow, a surprisingly good tweet in a sea of bullshit. That's nice to see. I could be wrong, but I'm assuming you're a straight white man, so yeah, go do something about it. Why are you guys bothering the rest of us with this? I can't figure it out. Because I would like for Democrats to win the election. Why do you care about men suffering? Because I want to win the election. Amazing. This is the issue right here. Start seeing men as people and not numbers in polls. That is step one. You can't even do step one. Anyway, there were thousands of...
Oh, of course you have TikTok. Of course you have. Just give us a second. It's being a dick. Check that out. Live restricted for some audiences. Your live contains themes that some may find uncomfortable as being restricted. Reason: hate speech and hateful behaviors. Hate speech and hateful behaviors. Thank you, TikTok. As always, I'm absolutely in love with your vetting process. Oh well. Oh well. Pretty much only people that can watch this now are it's just ended completely. Your live is flagged for hate speech and hateful behaviors. Repeating violations could result in your live being discontinued. How kind. Well, anyways, thank you for the 74 people on TikTok that tuned in, as well as the 1 follow and 272 likes. I'll take it. TikTok is honestly a joke. But it went for 48 minutes, so I can't complain. Anyways, back we go.
Of these kind of tweets in response to this guy. You get it. We've seen it all before. If I went through all of them, this video would be 3 hours long.
Joel Terry says, babysat by the CCP Killjoy, push degeneracy instead on TikTok, and you'll excel. I know, imagine, to be fair, they just cancelled a woman. The CCP are misogynists. They cancelled a woman because she was on my screen. How dare they? She's just speaking facts. There's nothing I can do about her speaking facts. There's nothing I can do about the fact that she has a bunch of screenshots of absolutely brainwashed idiot men online telling us about how men are the absolute evil of the world, scum of the earth. It's just what Democrats do. They view everything that doesn't support them as scum. And even those who do support them, as long as they're white men, they're scum anyway, but we're just put in our place, right down there on the bottom of the heap.
White Dudes for Harris wasn't the only strange attempt the Democrats threw out at the last second to get the male vote.
Hey, white dudes. So, I think we're all pretty sick of hearing how much we suck. Every time you go online, it's the same story. We're the problem. And yeah, some white dudes are. Trump and all his MAGA buddies are out there making it worse.
Are you f***ing kidding me? Years of these people saying men suck and are the problem, and now they're like, hey fellow men, are you sick of being told you suck and are the problem? The audacity. Apparently, Kamala Harris has a
What a fascist that Trump guy is, honestly. Who does he think he is?
secret weapon to win over male voters.
Kamala Harris is turning to her running mate, Tim Walz, hoping he is the secret weapon who can chip away at Donald Trump's support from men.
Much like how Trump chose Pence to win over the more establishment Republican voters, Kamala seems to have chosen Tim Walz to try and win over the white male vote. And boy, are they trying. Now, I don't hate Tim Walz. In fact...
No. Tim Walz or JD Vance? Let's be real, people. Let's be real here. Tim Walz or JD Vance? I mean, I reacted to their debate. I mean, you can go watch that if you want as well on YouTube. Tim Walz or JD Vance? Oh, yeah, okay.
In fact, I was pleasantly surprised when they chose him over Josh Shapiro. I like a lot of his policies, like his universal school lunch policy. That's an amazing policy. You'd have to be an insane freak to disagree with that. Or a libertarian. but I repeat myself. And there were a few times where he was speaking where I completely forgot he was running to be Kamala's VP and not president himself. And he actually brought a lot of energy to the Democratic stage for once. So what the f was this? Putting out a bunch of ads of Tim Walz changing the air filter in a car, clumsily shooting a gun, and drawing a political football play-by-play. Trotting out Walz like some kind of minstrel show of a white man. Like a man dressing up like a man for Halloween. You don't gotta do all this, bro, I promise you. And they don't shy away about how that's exactly what they are trying to do. Tim Walz is clearly a Midwest man's man, but he's the antidote to toxic MAGA masculinity. Despite his typically masculine resume as a Midwestern football coach and veteran, Walz is utilizing those qualities to push forward a more progressive, compassion-based form of masculinity.
Kill me.
Part of being a vice president is understanding that you are just that, someone who is there to aid and support the president. Walz simply being there on the ticket with a woman and taking a back seat to his running mate, Vice President Kamala Harris, is him embracing his leadership role in a positive, masculine way.
There is nothing that a man would genuinely find more absurd to vote for than a reversal of what their natural instinct is. Whether or not you have an issue with women in positions of power, which of course I don't. I think if there's a competent woman in a position of power, all power to it. But you're saying that Walz is a good pick because it's embracing his leadership role in a positive, masculine way, despite the fact that it's the most natural instinct of the man to take the lead and to protect and guide the females in their lives. That's just what men are programmed to do. So every man voting for Harris and Walz are voting for the exact opposite of their natural instinct. And they wonder why men aren't particularly interested. That is it, right there. Same with Clinton in 2016. They're just trying to do the exact same thing again, and they think it's going to be successful. In fact, if you look at it this way, 2016, Clinton lost. 2024, Harris is probably going to lose. And so, when it all comes down to it, the Democrats will spin it as white men hate women. That's the only reason why these women lost. Meanwhile, if you put Tim Walz versus Tulsi Gabbard would win in a landslide. So, whatever.
Football coach and cheerleader, how Tim Walz is defining masculinity. Amy Deal, a sexism researcher and author of the 2023 book Glass Walls, told USA Today that men like Walz who are intentional about rejecting traits and beliefs commonly dubbed as toxic masculinity are the tonic to harmful stigma associated with expectations of men and boys.
Soul Power says, totally agree, men look the male hierarchy. Exactly, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just natural. That's how we're programmed. And not abusing that power and that hierarchy and that structure is important. And then acknowledging where and when is the time to be emphasizing that. So, for example, there are a lot of very, very competent females in the workforce, whatever. But when it comes to families that are working to the best that they possibly can, you generally have a very, very strong, a headstrong male, accompanied by often a headstrong female, and they discipline the shit out of their kids. And they all live great lives. They complement each other. Men have this inbuilt function, well, most men, seemingly the white dudes for Harris don't, that no matter how competent their wife is, they want to be the ones that are bringing home the bread, that are leading by example. Just how we're built.
He shows you can be masculine, but also not threatened by women as equals or women who are in positions of power. In fact, you can be cheerleaders for them. Notice the common theme here. Taking a back seat. Cheerleading. Like 5 different articles I read specifically use this word cheerleading. Even a few about Kamala Harris's husband, Doug. God knows we need an antidote for all the lousy men in the news, and I think I found one. A lovable goofball who is happy to cheerlead for his wife, the Vice President of the U.S., Thank God for Doug Emhoff. Successful guys can support their wives and be respected. You don't have to be the quarterback to play the game at an elite level. Emhoff and his breed of dudes who are giving it their best shot may never be as come hither to lost young men as the militant Andrew Tate models of manhood, but they are out there, and, not unlike good husbands, will appear when they are needed. From the outside looking in, the right promises young men a return to the good times, of the glorious past. You know, the one your grandfather had. The Coca-Cola ad rose-tinted version
Fascism.
of the past. Back when you can afford a house and support a family on one income. While the left, which historically, in my opinion, had the policies to make that happen, are instead trying to sell men a vision of the future.
Soul Power says, beauty doesn't raise your kids' values. Right. Exactly. Unfortunately, for this lovely thing on screen, I think you got the beauty and the values. Enough flirting with the screen.
And well, the future is female. A future where you're no longer playing the game, men. You're on the sidelines being a cheerleader. Doesn't that just sound so exciting? Like, what the hell is going on inside these DNC consultant meetings? I really gotta know. Does anyone have any ideas on how to appeal to young men? And please, for the love of God, do not say we have to offer them
not
anything
the cowering.
or change in any way. I got it. What? Camo hats. We did that. Vasectomy bus. We did that. Have you perhaps tried nagging them? Yes, we've been doing that. Say, you know that whole male loneliness epidemic thing? Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Oh yeah.
A really nice place. Have you been here before?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite spots. I bring everybody here.
I said not go on a lot of dates, but...
Hey men, if you don't vote for Kamala Harris, women won't fuck you. Brilliant. Young men should know that if you vote for Trump, you're basically never going to get laid. I mean, is it incorrect? Don't think so. Trump gives girls the ick. Vote Harris, get laid. They are not beating the pretending to be progressive to get laid allegations with this one. Literally just endorsing woke fishing. When men pretend to be more progressive on dating apps to get laid. Do not do this, by the way. Be open and honest about your opinions. And no, you cannot fix them. Also, pretty weird and like low-key sexist to imply like women are some prize for voting the correct way. Hey, and if all else fails, go after the Gooner vote.
Oh! Sorry, you can't do that.
What the hell, man? How'd you get in here?
I'm your Republican congressman. Now that we're in charge, we're banning porn nationwide.
I'm sorry. I love this ad. The one time they speak to men directly, and it's, hey men, the Republicans are gonna take away one of the only vices you use to numb the pain. So vote for us. Bleak. Just the absolute state of the world right now. Also, was that Germa? Believe it or not, this wasn't the worst of it.
I'm a man.
Oh yeah, here we go.
I'm a man, and I'm man enough. I'm man enough to enjoy a barrel-proof bourbon. Neat. Man enough to cook my steak rare. You think I'm afraid to rebuild a carburetor? I eat carburetors for breakfast. I'll
Yes,
tell you
you
another
do.
thing I sure as shit am not afraid of. Women.
When I first saw this, I thought it was a parody created by Republicans to make fun of how hard the Democratic Party is trying to pander to men to get their vote. But alas.
I love women. I love women who support their families. Women who decide not to have families. Women who take charge. And I'm man enough to help them win.
Everything from them directed towards men has to have like this tone of irony or self-deprecation. They can't even do it sincerely. But apparently white men aren't the only demographic Kamala is struggling with.
This is the Democratic margin among black men under the age of 45 in presidential elections. You go back to November of
not going
2012,
well, is it?
what do you see? You see Obama by 81. Clinton only won him by 63. Then we're all the way down to Biden last time around by 53. A tremendous drop already. And then you take a look at the average of the most recent polls, and Kamala Harris is up by only 41 points.
Democrats deployed their ultimate weapon, Barack Obama. At a campaign stump for Harris on Thursday in Pittsburgh, Obama said that despite Harris raising upward of $1 billion, we have yet to see the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. That lag in energy, he added, appears, quote, to be more pronounced with the brothers. You're coming up with all kinds of reasons and excuses. I've got a problem with that, he said, because part of it makes me think, and I'm speaking to men directly, part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman for president, and you're coming up with other alternatives and other reasons for that. Once again, their only tactic seems to be getting in a man's face and going, tisk tisk bad boy. Like a dog that just peed on the carpet. It's not 2014 anymore, Barack. Nobody cares about sexism, motherfucker. We can't afford groceries. What's...
Quickly, thanks Soul Power, saying you love my work, keep it up. Will do, as well as men are at their best when women keep the peace. I think she's doing a pretty good job of keeping the peace, don't you? I reckon.
Crazy is, as far as I know, Kamala herself has never played the woman card. She has never played the sexism card. In fact, she actively pushes against it.
You've been reluctant to lean into, to talk about the historic nature of your candidacy on the campaign trail. Why is that?
Well, I'm clearly a woman. I don't need to point that out to anyone.
Well, I don't know these days.
The point that most people really care about is, can you do the job? And do you have a plan to actually focus on them?
That is easily the best thing that she has said in the entire campaign. It sucks that it's backed up by absolutely nothing.
Proud. It's like they finally learned from Hillary Clinton's failure. But that didn't stop the media or Barack Obama from doing it for her. Thanks, Obama. For all the Zoomers, thanks, Obama was a meme in like 2008. Yeah, it was funny back then. That would have slapped. While I was writing this video, Kamala and Gretchen Whitmer were getting ready to film a video at a bar together when Kamala was apparently caught on hot mic saying this.
Yeah. Oh, we have microphones and we're just listening to everything. I didn't realize that. Okay. So, well,
You'll
now you
bleep
tell
my
us.
F words.
We just told all the family secrets. Shit.
We need to move ground with men, so what we're gonna do is pretend to drink beer at a bar. Men like beer, right?
Cheers.
Just talk about policy. Just be yourself. Just listen to men and what they want. Kamala, all you gotta do is talk. Actually, no, now that I think about it, that might make it worse. Put Tim Walz out there, okay? Let Tim Walz do the talking. Don't dress him up as a man. You wanna know how to speak to men? Go to where they are. A good place to speak to young men is the Joe Rogan podcast, which Kamala hinted at going on, but then that never happened, and instead Trump went on, and that episode hit like 20 million views in a day. But like, can you blame her? Joe Rogan is just one of the most popular podcasts in the world with a majority young male audience. I hate it here. Every time this topic comes up, so does the topic of like Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, internet algorithms, Gamergate, whatever.
There is a massive amount of right-wing radicalization that has been occurring, especially in younger male spaces. Any hobbies whatsoever, whether it's playing video games.
Shut up, Hassan.
Whether it's working out. Whether it's, I don't know, listening to like a history podcast or whatever, everything that they see is right-wing sentiment being expressed by individuals that they find charismatic.
But you can only blame internet algorithms for so much for so long. This automatic assumption that any dissent from liberal mainstream thought could only be caused by manipulation or brainwashing from podcasters is honestly a cope, in my opinion, and just an easy excuse for failing to reach anyone beyond your own subreddit. As if this all wasn't the result of like a stagnant neoliberal corpo hell world that created a vacuum that was just waiting to be filled with any kind of populism. The crazy thing is the Democratic Party did have a candidate who successfully spoke to the demographic that they are currently trying so hard to reach. His name was Bernie Sanders. And every time he did speak to that demographic or say he was concerned that the Democratic Party didn't do enough to speak to that demographic.
Now, the interesting part about this is, like, sure, maybe Bernie was doing a interesting job, or some degree of a job of speaking to this demographic, but it comes with the caveat of he's a socialist. And he, like, the socialist of the type that would be a little bit more favorable to Maduro in Venezuela. So I suppose there's a downside there. And I will admit, when I was first really getting into politics, and I think this might have even been kind of like I think it was kind of during Trump's term, and I was listening to Bernie talk, and for some reason I thought, of all the Democrats, or of all the left-leaning people, oh yeah, Bernie seems alright. I had no idea about much of his policy, but just listening to him speak, I was like, this guy seems cooler than the other people. So as a 17, 18-year-old who was only really just getting into politics, yeah, I found that appealing. And to give you some context, at that time I was a Labour Party supporter in New Zealand, so or at least I not necessarily supported, but I supported them being in government, if you could put it that way, even though I probably leant towards New Zealand First in that little coalition they had. But yeah, Bernie Sanders, he certainly had some sort of draw even on me, even though he was an old socialist. I mean, and so, yeah, it's a great thing that he didn't get the Democratic nomination, to be fair, even by nefarious means. But, yeah, he still, it makes a good point here. But thank goodness.
He was called a sexist, a racist. He was backstabbed multiple times and cheated out of winning the Democratic primaries.
Exactly.
His fans were called Bernie Bros and constantly
Bernie Bros.
berated as sexists and misogynists. His campaign was too white and too male, and this apparently was a top priority to remedy in future campaigns. We were told he was just like Trump and, quote, appealed to angry white men. Well, who's trying to appeal to angry white men now,
You know what I think it was? I think it was the media narrative around Bernie that made him appealing. Isn't it funny how they try and cancel people or make them unelectable, and then all of a sudden it does the exact opposite?
It's almost like Bernie's hyper-focus on working-class issues, bread-and-butter issues, and populism was naturally attractive to men. No football or beer required. I miss him. And you know what? Maybe this shift with young men has less to do with who's holding the football and more of what happens when the DNC spends all their time and energy trashing the little bit of populism in their movement. And if you ask me, handing conservatives a monopoly on anti-establishment rhetoric on a silver platter was probably their first mistake. They kind of gave up on that bread and butter New Deal stuff for identity politics, and if you deny this, you are either lying or coping. The physical manifestation of the left has gone from the vision of the blue-collar union worker to a nagging, scolding fat woman with blue hair, barging into everyone's spaces and culturally colonizing them. Change this, change that, I don't like this, I don't like that. It's just incredible for me to witness years of anti-male rhetoric finally come back to bite the left and Democrats in the ass. Watching these chickens come home to roost has just been both incredibly depressing and deliciously vindicating to me in a sick way, and I'm not sure if I should lend out a helping hand or Mufasa them off this fucking cliff. Some Democrats are nervous the party was too late to realize the problem. These Democrats worry that the party has focused too much on courting women voters, LGBTQ voters, and culturally progressive voters, alienating too many men in the process. There's a recognition that we're losing men, and the things we're doing around men haven't been working. I think a lot of it is a reaction to social progressivism done the wrong way, says David Hogg. Young men, he says, feel like progressives look down on them for saying the wrong thing,
They do.
even when it's a mistake. That discomfort is enough to drive them away from the Democratic Party,
It
even
is.
if they don't necessarily agree with Republicans. They would rather be around someone they don't agree with who doesn't judge them, than somebody they do agree with who judges them constantly.
I've seen David Hogg's account on X, right? Honestly, he epitomizes white dudes for Harris, or at the very least, he epitomizes progressives who think they know better than everyone else. I mean, this says it all. He even understands what the issue is. It won't stop him from talking the way he does. Honestly, yeah. I'm frankly sick of progressivism. Progressivism is a cancer to society. It generally is. He's saying, I think a lot of it is reaction to social progressivism done the wrong way. As if there is a better way to do social progressivism. The whole issue with social progressivism is it is literally nonsensical. All of it is predicated on believing falsehoods. Men can be women this. Killing babies is fine. Like, oh yeah, you're a white man, you're an evil person because of that. Oh, you believe that we should have the same rights as everyone else? Oh, you're a fascist. Absolutely everything about social progressivism is inconsistent with reality, and that's why people are so turned off by it. There's no better way of doing it.
Men aren't moving right because they are choosing fascism. They are moving right because the left made them the villains in their anime fan fiction. It's not that they all like Trump. It's that they all hate you, and no amount of camo hats is going to fix that. But do not get it twisted. I do not in any way, shape, or form believe the GOP is going to help men. I don't think they're going to help anyone. Except maybe Israel. Do I think all of the left is some hyper woke fat lady wagging her finger in men's faces like no fun allowed? No. If I did, I wouldn't call myself left-wing. I'm not a Democrat, I'm a registered independent. But the Democratic Party is historically better on policy, and despite their messaging, even when it comes to helping men. Healthcare, higher wages, paid family leave, labor protection, social security, things Republicans have always fought against. And I think that's why this is extra frustrating to me. I don't say this with any love for the Republican Party. In fact, if anything, I say it with love for the Democratic Party. I f***ing hate them, but deep down, I wish they could be better. I'm doing this for your own good. Shh. Go sleep, shh. Go sleep, I love you, go sleep, shh. I just hope that whether Kamala wins or loses, the party can take a step back and evaluate what they're doing wrong. Because I don't think the Democratic Party should be the party for the gays and women. I think the Democratic Party should be the party for everyone, including angry white men. So in your opinion, what could the Democratic Party do to win back young men? Can they do anything? Are they f***ed? To me, it might take decades of work to fix the culture, the rot that infests the progressive ideology. It is going to take a lot of work to fix, but I think it's worth it, not just for the Democratic Party's sake, but just for society's sake. If you like this video, please consider donating to my Patreon, link down below. It really helps the channel out, and I appreciate it so much. Also, thank you for 2 million subscribers.
That's a big rock on her finger,
and
I
I
tell
will
ya.
see you guys with a new video soon. Bye!
Alright, that was that. That was very good. Thanks, Joel Terry, for sharing that with us. It's very good. Crikey dick. Now, I gotta say, she's right on pretty much everything. Being a registered independent, I mean, all power to her. I can't blame someone for being a registered independent in this day and age. It doesn't seem right to firmly place yourself in one camp or the other, especially in a two-party system. Like, even me in the last year, I've jumped around from one party to the other. I'm very much what you'd call a swing voter. But, you know, it really is predicated to me on policy. And if you're not bringing the policy, I'm not interested. If you're going to focus on a campaign of lies, I'm not interested. Let's go quickly again. What my political history is. 2017, first election that I took any notice of. Well, actually, no, I lie. I took notice of politics in the Labour leadership contest between Cunliffe, was it Cunliffe, Little, and Robertson? Was that the three? Whatever one that Cunliffe was in, Cunliffe won. That's when I first took notice, and I only remember really because individuals that I was in the room with when we saw it come on TV said, "Oh, we don't want Robertson because he's gay." It's like, okay, interesting. I mean, I don't want the guy because he's useless. That's how I would look at it now. But then they kind of all were useless, weren't they? Actually, of those three, I'd probably have to say Cunliffe was maybe the least useless. Certainly, he's the least partisan of the three, at least presently. I know Cunliffe's not in Parliament anymore, so that's easier to say. But then after that, you know, it was 2017. The election came around. I was never a fan of Key. Funny enough, I was never a fan of Key. I met Key once when I was 10 years old. He came to an opening of a new office block at my school, and that was at Patumahui, down near Pukekohe. And he used my 4-color ballpoint pen, and he signed autographs with it. And then I asked for it back, and he gave it back to me, and I was very upset because a couple of years later I snapped it when I was angry. But funny enough, I never really took a liking to Key or the National Party. At one point, I looked at Judith Collins on screen, and I was just like, I don't care. Simon Bridges, same thing. Funny enough, I ended up supporting Simon Bridges and Judith Collins in 2020. But anyways, yeah, so 2017, it comes to that election. I'm leaning more towards a left-wing government of of Labour, but when it came to the actual result and I saw that Winston Peters had a decision to make, I was very much wanting Winston Peters to go with Labour, even though I feel like at that time I was thinking I had more in common with New Zealand First than anyone else. Regardless, I wanted Winston Peters to go with Labour. He did, so I didn't really get the negative or the anger associated with that decision that many people that are opposed to Winston Peters in New Zealand First have, because he made the decision I wanted him to anyway. So I changed my tune within a year and a half as I became more invested in politics and actually learned how ridiculous that decision was, or how poor that decision was with respect to the future of the country. With that being said, he did a fantastic job as a handbrake over that 3-year period anyway, so, you know, had things changed hands back to National in 2020, it wouldn't have been as bad. Alas, it didn't happen. New Zealand First got booted out in 2020, National got absolutely decimated in the election, at which point I was back on the Simon Bridges, Judith Collins, Todd Muller bandwagon, purely because how much I despise Labour at this point. You know, looking back at it more, Todd Muller, what a joke. Simon Bridges was easily my favourite of the three that had leadership that year. But Simon Bridges was just forced out because of media narratives. More so than anything else, media narratives, but of the three, he was arguably the strongest. But yeah, that happened. Then over the next 3 years, I was, again, for the good chunk of that, I was very much a National supporter. I wasn't shy about acknowledging membership to the party. You know, I went to a couple electorate meetings here and there. Even got my Judith Collins book signed by her. Haven't read it. Can't be asked, if I'm honest. But it was cool. But yeah, so I was in that camp, and then election year comes around last year, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm waiting for them to be worth my vote. I'm waiting for them to give me confidence that they are going to take a more hardline approach in the centrist position they've had for the last few years, certainly more so than prior to 2020. It never came. Luxon could sit there all he liked and told me that, oh yes, it's important that you vote for me because of the economy. It's important that you vote for me because of crime. It's like, I know you're going to do these things anyway. By comparison, I know your record on this. I know your party's record. You're not going to convince me to vote for you just on that alone, when I know there's other political parties who will also push for exactly that. What I need is for you to give me confidence that you can push back on the media, because the media needs to be put in its place. They didn't convince me they could do that. In fact, it's only now, after the election, that Luxon's slowly pushing back on the media to a level that I think is the just enough, satisfactory, but just enough. He started to say, I don't care what you have to say. I don't care what you think. I'm doing what I want. He's slowly getting there. But again, that's not enough. He needed to push back more on social issues. He refused to. They wanted to keep it strict about economic issues, crime, really basic things. He had no interest in going into the treaty, no interest in going into gender-affirming care and all that. No interest at all. And when I'm looking at that, and I'm thinking, okay, this is traditionally a party that is, sure, centre-right, but founded on some pretty core conservative principles even. They just never did it. So in August last year, I attended a New Zealand First meeting. Well, guess who got my vote? It wasn't National. Well, actually, Rima Narkali, Takanini MP, she got my vote, but that's because there was no NZ First candidate in the... Well, I mean, to be fair, if there was an NZ First candidate there, I probably wouldn't have gone for them because I knew they had no chance in hell. But Rima Narkali got the seat, and that's good. I think I'd much rather her than Nedu Leavasa, who no one has ever seen speak. I mean, the fact that you could be a member of the largest majority under MMP ever, and pretty much no one knows you exist, I mean, that's an indictment on you, isn't it? You're obviously not of much use to them. You're just a DEI hire trying to get the Pacifica vote in South Auckland. Even though, to be fair, there is a really strong Indian population kind of in Takanini in that area. There is a very, very strong population, which I think generally leans more national. Because it was a combining of two electorates, one that was, I think it was Hunua and like Flatbush or whatever. And one was more national leaning, one was more Labour leaning, and in 2020, that was just, Labour had all the momentum, so that was just never going to go in National's favour. So yeah. That's what we got. And overall, I have to say I am optimistic about the future of the country with the current way of things. However, 2026 we need more non-national MPs. That's just how it has to be. National is not going to change unless they're forced to. Unless you've got NZ First and ACT making up at least half of the seats in a coalition. Now, ACT won't be happy about that at all. In fact, New Zealand First likely wouldn't want much influence from ACT if they could help it. But it's important that they balance out National significantly if we're ever going to see National come more to the right. And National need to come more to the right. They need to start remembering that why they're called National. Let's be real. You can't call yourself National and not be a nationalist party, frankly. And if you don't want to be a nationalist party with that name, you can change your name. That's just simply how it is. I find it insulting that a party can be called National and be so anti-nationalism, or could work actively against the interests of the country. And I'm not gonna say that National are the worst party for this, but they simply are too invested in just being this typical neoliberal pack of just boring people. Just boring neoliberal ideologues with not much to them. That's what they are. They don't really have a strong vision for the country. Just give us the reins and we'll make sure the economy's okay, we'll make sure crime's okay, and you'll be right. I want something more than that. Give me something more. Is it too much to ask? I want you to tell me, yeah, sure, we're going to get the economy in the best place it's ever been. We're going to get crime under control. These people are not going to want to commit crimes, otherwise they're going to be living in a world of hell. And by world of hell, I mean they're going to be forced to reintegrate and do rehabilitation and actually live their life like everyone else is supposed to. Because that's what's good for society, that people reintegrate and start being functioning members of society. We don't need them going out and causing havoc after a few years behind bars because there's not enough emphasis on rehabilitation. We want to get crime under control, we want to get the economy under control, we want to do this, but we want to make it better than ever. On top of that, we want to see other countries start respecting us. Sure, people can say, oh, New Zealand, isn't that like that state of Australia? Or, oh, New Zealand, that's where they do the haka that half the world finds a little bit obnoxious at this point. Oh, New Zealand, that's where, what happened in New Zealand again? People don't know anything about New Zealand apart from the All Blacks, apart from Jacinda Ardern, apart from our short tenure with the so-called rockstar economy. People don't know us. Half of the world still thinks we're part of Australia. We need more. Right now, what we've got an unnecessary amount of immigration, not enough of it being skilled. And on top of it all, we've got a bunch of people in Parliament who have absolutely no interest in putting our nation's interests first. Let's send a bunch of money to Ukraine. Let's do a bunch of stuff that, frankly, isn't actually improving the well-being of everyday New Zealanders. Let's just adopt some bullshit progressive ideology from the US and presume that that's going to improve child welfare, that it's going to reduce global emissions. All of this nonsense that we know doesn't actually work, but that we adopt because it's the trendy global thing to do, right? I need some more substance. In fact, you know what I want? I want to see some investment in our defense force. I'm sorry, but we need to actually be we need to be investing in this stuff. I mean, imagine, like, let's think about the World War era, right? Where we actually had genuine threat from the Japanese. And that's why we've got our cool bloody cannons and whatever they are stationed at certain points around the country. We had genuine threat from the Japanese, our enemies. Yeah, sure, we're not going to be the first target of any global superpower, but just imagine how much easier it would be for the likes of China to launch an attack on Australia from our shores. And if we're not defending ourselves, they could just rock up on their boats and absolutely take over like that. Like that. Sure, you could say Australia will act pretty quickly to stop it from happening, and sure, the US isn't too far away. But, I mean, in that sort of situation, they're going to be bloody preoccupied, aren't they? So we need to be investing in our defense force. We need to be investing in our police force, in our emergency services. We need to be investing in all of these things. But you know what we shouldn't be investing in? Ukraine. We shouldn't be investing in school lunches, frankly. We shouldn't be investing in climate change. We shouldn't be investing in all of these things which don't increase economic growth, increase our ability to defend ourselves, and increase the quality of life for everyone in the country. We most certainly shouldn't be spending a stupid amount of money to house immigrants. Now, our issue with immigration isn't anywhere near as bad as other countries, but it's still an issue. Too many people who aren't skilled just coming into the country. Now, I am not just opposed to immigration as a whole. But when you can't house all of your own citizens, then you need to stop bringing people in unless they're skilled workers, frankly. Because right now we have a skills shortage and a housing shortage. Or at the very least, not enough people able to afford the houses. Not enough people able to afford investing in new builds in certain areas. Right now, if you're a young family and you live in Auckland, your best bet is to leave Auckland. Same for any other city centres. Your best bet is to leave Auckland. For many people, that's not even viable. You know, the left wants to focus on, let's tax ghost houses. Let's do this. Let's put rent controls on. How about no? You see, the thing about rent controls is then all of a sudden you really have absolutely no one able to find a house. Because if you put rent controls and you make it affordable for everyone, suddenly you're out of rentals and there's many, many people who have nothing. And you're not giving landlords enough of an income to invest in other properties. It's not going to be worth their while. Then you're further going to reduce the supply. That some landlords might just pull out of it altogether. So, on balance, what the left is proposing isn't going to do shit. What the right is proposing isn't going to do shit. And that is why, unless you are offering me improvement, dramatic improvement across the board, unless you want to cut down unnecessary government waste, I'm not interested. And frankly, none of you should be interested either. And I was saying this last week, and it was more of just a quick tweet asking a question. But 10% tax rate, flat tax rate on income, yes or no? I think many people said yes. Some people said no. And I think the rhetoric behind no is we can't afford it. It's like we can't afford it because we're spending billions and billions and billions on shit we just shouldn't be investing in. Honestly, we don't need it. People often cite places like Argentina right now. It's like, oh yeah, but when Argentina took this dramatic austerity approach and reduced government spending dramatically and fired pretty much the entire public service, their unemployment rate went up by 10%. Their unemployment rate was already over 40%. It went up to 52% and will likely come down as their economy adjusts. When you're in a country that has the inflation rate that Argentina had, and you're wasting as much money as you are in the public service, you're going to get a negative result in the short term. I just saw people complaining that apparently the next Trump presidency would be a short-term hardship, that there'll be some degree of austerity there. don't you think that that is necessary when you're in a position that you're in? When you've got such a lack of money to use, when you've got such debt? I mean, they made the same complaints about National. Oh, National's going to come in and implement austerity and everything's going to get harder. In some areas, life has got a little bit harder, for some people in particular. In the long term, it's going to be a bit better. Now, is National the best party to handle the economy? Frankly, I don't think so. I think I'd much rather X approach to the economy right now, frankly. But hey, it's certainly better than that socialist pile of shit on the other side of the house. So, I mean, you have to take what you're given, and right now we're a bit stuck on options. Anyways, rant over. I need to go make dinner. I'm basically just cooking up mince, putting some cheese, some herbs and spices and whatnot in there. But a quick look at the chat first. Soul Power says, I say unity as in let's celebrate Kiwis that made this country amazing. I completely agree. But yeah, I think that's everything. Unless someone has something to add real quick. I think this will do us. I'll quickly chuck some tunes on. Yeah, and Soul Power says, don't ask what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And this is a famous quote, and it's a very good one. And I completely agree. What can you do for your country? Now, I'm a firm believer in that. And I am a firm believer that we need to move away from this belief that the government is there to make all of our shortcomings no longer, we need to move away from the idea that the government's job is to fill in the gaps where we're failing. That's more or less what I'm trying to say. They shouldn't be there to feed our kids just because for some reason we can't. They shouldn't be there to pay for our healthcare. They shouldn't be there to pay for our education. They shouldn't be there to pay for the vast majority of things they pay for. And the reason why we think that we need that is because the way that we've gradually set up our system and evolved it over time. I'm not interested in it. The government can't be trusted to spend your money wisely, so they shouldn't be the ones spending it. You should be. All of the money that they take from you every year, imagine how much more you could be succeeding in your life if you were able to take that same money, use it in the same areas that you need the benefit, and allow the market to dictate that. Sure, have some regulations there, but don't control prices, don't take charge of things like health and education yourself. Make sure people aren't being exploited, but outside of that, let people take the charge. We don't need your input. I'm just gonna let the tunes go for a bit. I'll just make a few adjustments.
Why'd you pull the trigger? You won't find the light in the smoke and mirrors. You're screaming my name, we're lost in the haze. Baby, tell me, are you entertained? They're saying my name, calling me insane. I'm running like a bullet to the brain.
To a freak show. Look at Snow White eating rotten apples. Dirty bass that be coming at you. Roller coasters like a supernova. I'm the ringmaster, this my tabernacle. See you screaming, I'm like, what for? Oh, you pop? Yeah, I got popcorn. I don't wake up on the wrong lawn, so we won't stop. It's a lost cause. Take a look through the peephole. Yo, everybody's getting geek, bro. Stop the hate and let them leaks know that we turn the club into a freak show. Turn the club to a freak show. Turn the club to a freak show. Turn the club, yeah, we turn the club to a freak show.
Completely agree, Soul. Completely agree. Love NZ and respect to our elders that built it with love of all of us.
I killed it, it's murder, go crazy.
go crazy, berserker.
Show them. Change the station with a new shit. Show them. Change the station with a new shit. Change the station. Change the station. Change the station with a new shit. With a new shit. Change the station. Change the station. Change the station with a new shit. With a new shit.
Give us.
It's murder. I killed it, it's murder, go crazy, berserker. 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 I killed it. I killed it.
Hold it up, we gon' burn it down.
This is my dinner tonight. Good old half a kg of mince. Mix it up with some cheese, herbs, spices, whatever, pepper, salt. Be bloody great. I think that'll do us. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I'll be likely live streaming on the Underground Daily on Wednesday for the US election. Very likely, unless I get caught up with something else. So yeah, be tuning in. I'll be covering the US election extensively. I'll be uploading images, likely primarily to X, just sharing absolutely every single called state as it happens. So if Trump wins one, Harris wins one, I have a graphic ready, and that'll go up as we know more. It's an extremely important election for everyone, and that's why I'm covering it, even from here in New Zealand. It's so important for the rest of the world. So if you want to tune in, if you're available on Wednesday to tune in, I'm sure we'll be going for many hours. Things change, I'll let you know. And if I'm not, if I don't in the end end up being on the Underground Daily, I'll be by myself, and we'll be watching as the results come in. Anyways, have a very, very good rest of your weekend. And I'll try and keep you more up to date as the weekend and the early week unfolds. Yeah, so have a great night, Joel and Sol, for your 2 cents in particular. Have a good one.